Good morning, guys, gals. My name's Ted, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to be doing a complete service on a 2008 3025 Caterpillar mini excavator. So I hope you guys stick around to the end of the video to see how I do a service on my mini excavator. Thank you. So the first thing I did here is I checked all the fluids in the machine to make sure everything was good to go before I started it. We're going to get her started up and get her over into the other spot where we're going to do the service. Contact. Alright, machine started up, we're good to go. We're going to let it sit here for a little bit, let it warm up, let all the fluids get good and warm. Then we'll track it on out of here and we'll get over to where we're going to do the service. So while we're waiting here for the excavator to get warmed up, we might as well get our working surface that we're going to be crawling around on while we're draining the fluids and stuff like that clean. Okay, we have the table all set up, ready to go. As you can see, I got 2 pair of rubber gloves. You never know when you're going to need an extra set if you have a blowout. I got the filter wrench kit, a couple Sharpies to write on the filters for the hours, my drain pan, funnel, gear oil because we are doing a complete service, which means we are going to service the final drives. I have a flashlight, a headlamp, roll paper towels, and key ingredient for the oil. We're using Rotella T4 1540 today. And then over here, we have the complete filter kit from Cat for the excavator. And what I will do is I will put part numbers in the video for those of you that will be using this video for your specific model 3025, so you have that for reference. Alright, the excavator's been warming up for, I would say, probably the last 20 minutes. Fluids should be good and warm. Let's hop in it, get it out, and get it over across the way. First things first, we're going to grab this oil pan over here, crawl underneath the machine, get that in place to where we're going to be draining the oil, and I'm going to show you guys how we drain the oil. Okay, so now we're going to crawl underneath the machine, get this oil pan set up underneath the crankcase. And I'll show you guys exactly where we need to. Okay, now that we put the oil pan underneath the crankcase ready to be drained, we're going to crawl back up top here and we're going to remove the oil fill caps. And the reason for doing this is basically I feel that when you're draining the oil out of the crankcase, it flows smoother and must get rid of the air. So we will get rid of these just like that. All right. Okay, now that we've taken that step of removing the oil fill caps, we're going to crawl back underneath the machine, and right there is our plug on the bottom of the crankcase. And what we're going to be using is this nifty little quick release oil release agent dip sticker, and I'll show you guys how that works. We're going to put on this drain, and basically what this does is once you get it tight, it starts to drain itself. So it has some type of seal, see that? So here, we'll let that sit there and we'll let her drain. Okay, while that's draining, we're going to come back up top here and we are going to locate where the oil filter is, which is right on the back of the machine, right there. All right, so the oil filter we are using to replace this is a Caterpillar filter, and part numbers are as such. All right, now that we've removed the old oil filter, what we're going to do is we're going to grab the new one. We're going to find a little bit of excess oil that's I got all over the place, get a little bit on the rubber gloves, and we're going to do a nice little ring around the rosy, just to give her a little bit of lubricity for sealage. Okay, now that we have the new oil filter installed to TED specs, we are going to go back over to the table and we're going to get our Rotella ready and fill the crankcase. ConstructionGuide.com says that this machine takes 2 gallons of oil. So, okay, we're going to hope that we got our funnel in here supported well enough, and we're going to fill her up with some Shell Rotella. Well, that was a waste of oil. So actually the next step before you start filling the machine back up with new oil, you're supposed to crawl back underneath and you're supposed to put the cap back on, which I did not do. So I'm going to crawl under there and I'm going to eat my words and just watch that half a gallon that I just poured in here wasted. What a dummy. Ugh. Okay, you can't see me, but I'm down here putting the cap back on so we don't lose the new oil that I just put in here. First day on the job. All right, we're gonna go with that. Let the funnel drain out, and we'll check the dipstick and see where we're at for level. Okay, so ConstructionGuide.com was correct. This machine does take 2 gallons of 1540. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna write it right up here, so next time we don't have to look it up. Okay, next step that I usually take after doing the oil change is I come over to the filter element, air filter that is, right there. Pull that apart and check the inner and outer air filter for the condition. If it can go for another 100 hours or 50 hours, I'll leave it in there and just blow it out. But I do have parts on hand if need be to change it out. Okay, super simple. Basically, you come over here, you release these 2 little quick clamps, the cap pulls off, set her off to the side. This is your outer air filter. We're going to just slide it off just like that. And I do know that this filter is 2 years old. It's been blown out multiple times throughout the season of work use. So this is going to get replaced this year. The inner, though, was replaced last year, and if you're looking at it, she still looks really good and clean. So we're just gonna line up with the hole right there, and we're gonna push her back in nice and snug. Okay, for your reference, the outer air filter on this is as such, and those are the part numbers. We got our outer air filter right here. We're gonna shove that in the hole right over top of this inner filter. Give her a nice twist, push, snug. Make sure it's seated good. And that's all she wrote for that. All right, then after we get the air filter installed, we're gonna grab the cap. We're gonna put the cap back on. Get her nice and seated, twisted. Always make sure that this little breather is on the downside. Snap the clamps back in. Done. Okay, now that we've completed the oil change, air filter, we're going to hop right over there, and that is our fuel filter. So we'll get that tore apart, and I'll explain to you what I'm doing. The fuel filter replacement that we're going to be using for this is as such. Okay, we're going to reach in here, and this is kind of like a little twist lock deal. We're going to release that right there. That's just kind of like a little scotch ring. And then if I'm not mistaken, this filter slides off. It don't twist off. Yeah, just like that. All right, after removing the old fuel filter, we're going to grab the new one and we're going to pre-fill this. Why? Because that's the way I was taught to do. Okay, now we got her pre-filled. We're gonna head over to the machine and we're gonna get her set in place. Okay, now we're gonna come back over to the machine, grab our fuel filter, and there's this little punch out right here. And I believe that is located on this filter element right there somewhere. We're gonna push that up into place like that. We're gonna take some of this wonderful diesel fuel that I have on my hands because I'm not wearing gloves. We're gonna rubber around this scotch ring, slide that up in, and twist and lock. Just like that, right there. Okay, next we're gonna come over here to the right side of the machine where the hydraulics are located. And under that cap right there is a filter cartridge for the hydraulic system. We're going to remove that, and I'll show you what that's all about. For the hydraulic filter change, that is the cat filter and cat part number for your reference. Okay, as you can see here, we got our diaper because this is a messy job. It is a cartridge that fits inside of a little housing underneath this cap. So we're going to remove this cap and reach in there, and it just kind of sits in there. Let her drippy dry for a few seconds. And if I'm not mistaken, what you're seeing right here is a housing. Yep, there, just like that. That pulls out, and you can see it's got like a little metal filter. And you just slide the new one on. Just like that. Set that back in there. And take your greasy, grimy hands and twist the top back on. Just like that. Okay, now that we've completed the hydraulic filter element change, we are going to do the cabin air filters. This is an enclosed ROPS machine, so it does have filtered air, and there is an outer one right there. And then if we come over to the cab interior, there's this little door right here that drops down underneath the seat, and right there is the other filter element for the cab. The two filters we're going to be using for the cabin air, this is the rear part number as such, and this is inside the cab underneath the seat, part number, oh no, part number right there as such. Here's the new air filter. I believe it just got a little clip right there. Pull that out. Slide that in with the foam seal on the inside. Try to reach in here and get my fat body in here. And pull that clip. Ow! 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 Just like that. Just like that. There. Done. Okay, for this rear filter element, it bolts into the back of the cab, and it is a 1/2-inch bolt. So just easier for me to take my impact and reach in here and release the beast. Maybe. Just like that. There. Filter done. Okay, we got our new cabin air filter element. Basically just slides in the bottom of the case there with that little notch, and the bolt goes through there like that into the case. Into the cab, not case, cab. There. Done. Alright, now that we've completed the full service minus greasing every zerk, we are going to grab the key that we took out so nobody will start this up with no fluids in it, and we are going to start the machine up. Contact. Okay, next for the service, we're going to hop down here to the final drives. There is gear fluid in here. We are going to drain this. We're going to flush it with diesel fuel just to get any of the rough imperfections and just make sure we get it nice and clean. I'll show you how we do that. And what we do, we got two plugs here. We got this plug right here in the middle. This is your check plug. It'll always stay in the middle. If you can get this plug to go from the top to the bottom, you let me know, because you're a magician. The plug up above it is the drain plug slash fill plug. When it's in the up position, obviously it's in the fill position. When it is down here on the bottom position, it is in the empty position. Empty out the final drives. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to prop this side of the track up, and I'll show you how we do that. We'll get this plug down to the bottom, and we'll drain the fluid out of here. The pain about doing this by yourself is you got to constantly get out and make sure you're lined up correctly. Don't do what I'm doing. Alright, we're going to loosen up these two plugs here that are on the final drive. One is for the check and the other one is for the fill. It is a 3/8 Allen head, and we'll loosen these up. Okay, there we go. Okay, now that most of the fluid has been drained out of this final drive right here, I'm going to reinstall the bottom cap. And we are going to fill this final drive up with diesel fuel until it starts running out of the check cap. And what we're going to do is run the machine with it lifted up in the air. And we're going to just let that diesel fuel flush around inside that final drive. Diesel fuel can be used to flush these out, kind of just clean them up. So what I've done basically is I've rotated the drain cap back up to the top so I can fill this in with some diesel fuel. With that diesel fuel in there, I'm going to run the tracks back and forth for a couple minutes and just let it swash around and, you know, just get this nasty old oil completely out of there, flush them out real good so we can start over fresh for the season. Alright, now that these have been flushed with diesel fuel, we'll hop back in the machine, we'll rotate that back around so that bottom plug is centralized all the way up to the top at 12 o'clock. Okay, fluid of choice for my final drives, I'm using Lucas oil product. It's 80/90 gear oil, trans and diff. This is usually what I use in the skid steers and everything that has final drives. So I believe it calls for a quart, which is one of these bottles, and we're just going to fill till we start seeing coming out of this check plug in the middle. Alright, it actually looks like we got a nice little stream coming out. So that tells me that that takes 1 quart. Now we'll just reinstall the plugs, and we are finished. And that is how you service a final drive. This machine will get touched up with a couple pumps of grease, usually about every 15 hours, 10 to 15 hours. Depending, but that's just kind of a daily maintenance item of a piece of machinery like this, is to go through every 10 to 15 hours and give her a couple pumps. Alright guys, gals, there you have it. We've done a complete service on the CAT 3025 excavator. I hope this video was instructional, and if you were here for those learning purposes, I hope that you gained maybe a little bit from this video. if you guys could do me a big favor, if you watch this video in its entirety, would you put in the comments Cat 3025 excavator DIY service? That just kind of lets me know that you guys sat through this whole thing, listened to me ramble on and on and on about whatever, but it just a peace of mind. That's all. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed the video.